Today is Thursday, February 27th, 2014, and this is the beginning of an interview with Mr. Marvin Haar at the Rutherford B. Hayes Presidential Center in Fremont, Ohio. Mr. Haar is 66 years old, having been born on December 19th, 1947. My name is Julie Miley, Manuscripts Assistant here at the Hayes Center, and I will be conducting this interview. Mr. Haar, could you state for the record what war you served in, the years you were serving, and the branch of service?
Well, I served in the Vietnam War. I went into the armed forces on July 18th of 1967, and I got an early out. I was out in April of '69.
Okay. And you served in the United States military, correct?
Yes, I was in the U.S. Army. My unit was Company B, 3rd Battalion, 1st Infantry, 11th Infantry Brigade, Americal Division.
Okay. Now, when you entered the military, were you drafted or did you enlist?
No, I got the letter, and I was drafted.
Okay. I was discussing this with somebody else. How did they decide who was drafted? Was it Social Security numbers, or was it like how's the system ran? Do you remember?
Well, my understanding of it is that when you were 18, you had to register for the draft.
Okay.
And then there was a series of deferments that basically that this is one of the injustices of the thing was that anyone that had money just basically sent their kids to college until such time as the war was over. And that seems perfectly fair to them, but a little less fair if you were one of those that got drafted. I have a relation that exactly did that.
Okay.
We thought that was a little unfair, and basically you entered this pool, and they always the draft boards were required to send X number of people. Somehow or another, that was figured out, and they always selected the youngest people in that pool first, which is another injustice.
That I didn't know.
Because they always sent the youngest first, because and you see when those people with the deferments, after 4 years they were not the youngest first anymore. Also, by that time they were more likely to be married and have kids, which again helped them.
Okay.
In an injustice, actually.
Yeah, I would think.
But it depends on which way you look at it. I'm sure that there are people that took advantage of those things and they thought that was perfectly just.
Okay. Now, when you were drafted, did they give you a choice of what branch military to enter?
Yeah, at that time, everyone that was drafted went into the Army. With a very few exceptions, they were drafted into the Marine Corps.
Okay.
Most of those people that were drafted into the Marine Corps were later kind of browbeat into taking an extra year. Because the Marines, they didn't like USs in the Marine Corps. And I guarantee there were plenty of old-time lifers in the Army that didn't like USs in the Army either.
Now, can you explain what USs are?
Oh, yeah, USs were the people that were drafted, and, and the US is your prefix on your service number. Later, I understand they used Social Security numbers, but that was after I was in. My service number was US 51831-409.
And you remember that?
Yeah, and I also remember the rifle number that I carried in the Nam.
Exactly, that's what my dad does too.
It had a 666 in it.
Let's see.
Very appropriate.
There you go. Now, do you recall your first days of service, your boot camp?
Now, I remember taking the oath. I remember standing there, and they swore us in. We swore to uphold the United States, basically.
Now, what city were you sworn in at?
That was in Cleveland.
Okay.
And they sent us by train to Louisville, and then from there, I guess it was buses or something that took us to Fort Knox, Kentucky. It was hot there, and I remember there was a big sign that said, "Before you leave here, you'll have packed the ground 6 inches." and the reception station there had yellow boot prints that basically helped you learn how to fall into formation. And that's how that worked. And it was not very pleasant. It was really hot there.
Do you have any experiences, or can you tell me about any of your experiences from boot camp that you remember fondly, not so fondly? Instructors?
Yeah, there was a Sergeant Veit. It was spelled Vight, I think, but I'm not really sure of that. And he was a sadistic person. And I was in Company A, and I could remember the battalion, 3rd Battalion. I'm not really sure about that. I could do a little research on that. But it was they decided too many people were going on sick call, so they just eliminated sick call. And I had hurt my knee somehow or another, and it swelled way up. And I finally did go on sick call, and the pencil pusher down there said it was a chigger bite. No, it was cellulitis. Finally, they ended up in the hospital, and I was hospitalized for like 6 weeks with that thing. And I got an impressive scar on my knee where they cut the abscess out of there. And when I got out of that, they sent me back to Company C, the same battalion, but Company C, and they recycled me. And I entered the training there on like the 3rd week or something, and I'd been like in the 5th week in A Company. And I was not very good at anything in basic training except shooting the rifle. I was an expert at that. I was a very good shot. And it was a lot better there in C Company. Now, I should mention too that when I got out of the hospital, I had to report to the battalion commander for that training company, and I know what he was after. He wanted me to establish that those jokers at A Company had eliminated sick call that day. But I did not incriminate any of those people because I'm very familiar with how the khaki mafia works. And if you make trouble for them, they have infinitely more capability of making trouble for you than you ever have for them. And I did not implicate any of those people for having eliminated sick call, but I know that's what he was after.
Your camp, how long was it?
It was 8 weeks.
It was 8 weeks, but it wasn't longer for you because you were injured?
Yeah, I spent a couple of months in the hospital there, at the Ireland Army Hospital, and the ward there was full of Vietnam veterans, full of them.
Wow. So after boot camp, where did you go after that?
Well, they sent me to Fort McClellan, Alabama, and the Fort McClellan, Alabama at the time was where all the women in the armed forces took their basic training. This was back when when there was there was like a separate army for the women then. It's not like that now. Mm-hmm. And but they also had one infantry training battalion there, and it was surrounded by these big plywood signs that were made out of plywood, and they were like the shape of a tiger, and it said, "Salute soldier, you're entering Tigerland." But like the true Tigerland was in Alabama, mm-hmm. or not in Alabama, but Louisiana, Fort Polk. But this had a little mini Tigerland, and it was not very pleasant there. They had forced marches every Saturday. And it put big blisters on your feet. Everyone there was issued 2 rifles, one M16 and one M14. And whenever they had a forced march, they made sure that you carried the M14, being that it was a great deal heavier. And it was not very pleasant. people attempted suicide there.
The soldiers themselves?
Yeah, they attempted suicide there. People cut their wrists, tried to kill themselves. It was not very pleasant there. People lost hope. I mean, they realized that these people, they kept screaming at you that you were going to get killed in the Nam, and they would bring out lists from Stars and Stripes of the people that they knew that had been in training with them. That this is the cadre that I'm talking about, and they said, "Yeah, this guy, I knew him. He's on the list. He's dead." People lost hope like that. They had patrolling there, and then at one point they separated the group of us that were going to be light weapons infantry and then heavy weapons infantry, and we went into patrolling. The light weapons people did, and the heavy weapons people went into the mortars. There was a place. It was like I don't know, several square miles big. It's called Pelham Range. It's probably all built up with houses now, but it was at one time it was farmland, and the Army had acquired it, and they used it for training. And it was marshy. It was like I can recall making it through those marshes in the middle of the night, holding my compass in my left hand, with water right up to my Adam's apple with ice on top. And to make it, this was part of escape and evasion training, not very pleasant. And they assured you that if you weren't at the waypoint at such and such time, that you would be out there all night. And I assure you that the people that weren't at the waypoint were out there all night. But I made sure I was at the waypoint. I was good at compass. I was good with a compass.
So after that, is that when you then got sent overseas?
There was a leave in there.
Okay.
You'll recall when I showed you the pictures with my mosquito wing on my. They selected one or two guys from each squad that had got recommendation from your squad leader, and they advanced us to PFC. Okay. But it was very little difference, because when we arrived in Vietnam, we were advanced to PFC anyway.
Now, before you went on that leave, did you know you were already going to Vietnam, or didn't you know?
It was almost sure, yeah. But there was some chance that you would go somewhere else, but most of us were pretty well resigned to go in Vietnam.
Okay. Now, what area in Vietnam did you go to?
Well, I arrived on April the 1st, 1968, April Fool's Day, and arrived at Cam Ranh Bay. Cam Ranh Bay is, different people have different idea of what Vietnam looked like, and it looks like 1,000 different things, really. But Cam Ranh Bay, it looks like the Sahara Desert, really. It's sand dunes all over the place. And everything's built on the sand. And it's hot as hell. I remember opening the door of the plane, and the heat is like Florida on steroids or something. It's hot. It was hot. And they had barracks there, and every twice a day they had a formation, and they called out orders, and these orders sent you to your unit. Well, I was there, and I recall they had breakfast, and then the formation. I decided that I was going to skip breakfast, because the food there was just absolute crap, and so I skipped breakfast and climbed back into my bed, which, it was just a mattress without any sheets, no pillowcases, no pillows, really. I just S-rolled the mattress, and I climbed up in there and kind of hooked my boots on the bottom there, and the next thing I knew, some corporal was whacking on my foot with a clipboard.